went to Brussels to meet with Michel Barnier. He's the chief Brexit negotiator for the European Commission. They were criticised by some who claimed they were seeking to undermine the British government's position. Well, Mr Barnier said his door is always open to senior political figures. And this morning he had a visit from the former UKIP leader, Nigel Farage, who says he was there to speak for the 17.4 million Brexit voters. So what did they discuss? Oh, to be a fly on the wall. Well, Mr Farage joins us from Brussels now. So did he welcome you with open arms, Nigel?
He was very polite. He offered me coffee, which surprised me. I thought, well, that's
what did you think he was going to offer you?
Oh, believe me, if you're invited into a meeting and coffee's not offered, you're probably going to get the sack in life, So this was a positive start, I thought. Coffee was offered. He's very cordial. He always is, to be fair. I've met him many times in the European Parliament in Brussels and Strasbourg. I started off by asking him, did he really understand what the key drivers were behind us voting for Brexit? And it was very clear that he didn't. He started to talk about economics and what the disadvantages may be. And I said, look, this is way beyond economics. It's about controlling your own borders, making your own laws. I said, and do you not understand, Mr Barnier, that open-door immigration to the European Union was a major driver of the Brexit vote? And the answer was no, he did not. And I thought what was interesting was that I'd gone there, and you're quite right. When I saw Lord Adonis, Ken Clarke and Sinead Clegg here, it sort of drove me bonkers. I thought there's a degree of collusion going on here. Forget the Russians. The real collusion is between the British elites and Brussels. So
and now you're there.
Well, yes, but I'm not a colluder, believe me. But what was very interesting was, if you believe as I believe, and all polling research backs up, that immigration was a key driver of the Brexit result, the disappointing thing is that clearly nobody from the British government has actually explained that to him, and that no progress has been made on that subject whatsoever.
But that is your view, isn't it, Nigel Farage? I mean, you are a sort of self-appointed representative. You're a self-appointed representative of the 17.4 million Brexit voters. The government say they respect the result of the referendum. Labour says they respect the result of the referendum. What makes you the expert when UKIP did really rather badly in the election to know what was in the mind of all those Brexit voters?
Well, there is something called political science, there is something called polling, all of which shows you that before, during the referendum, that one of the key drivers was getting back control of our borders, and people like Kwasi Kwarteng on your programme today believe in that very strongly. And when I said I was coming to represent the view of the 17.4 million voters, it was utterly justified when I saw the incomprehension in his face that this had been a key issue. Look, I don't doubt that Mrs May will take us out of the European Union, but this big key issue of immigration that everybody finds too embarrassing, too awkward to discuss, they'd rather just brush it under the carpet, it's still there, out in the country, people do still care about it. Is it any wonder we have an NHS crisis when we have a population growing by 500,000 a year? And clearly, wherever we are, with trade, with the European Court of Justice, with financial settlements, immigration has not yet even been discussed.
Right, Kwasi Kwarteng, what do you say in response to that? That actually, Nigel Farage says he knows what the main driver was behind the 17.4 million people who voted for Brexit. Is he right about immigration?
I think immigration was a portion of it. Certainly in my constituency, it was something that came up.
Main driver, says Nigel Farage.
I think it's a bit simplistic, perhaps, to say that was the only thing, because I'm not accusing Nigel of being simplistic, but there were other issues. There's sovereignty. Nigel mentioned the fact that it might be a good idea to make our own laws, and I think people felt that very strongly. And also there was deeply a sense that, our political culture, our institutions were things that people actually valued, and they didn't want to be part of a United States of Europe, which is where people think the EU is heading.
And are you pleased that Nigel Farage has gone to see Michel Barnier when Britain is in the middle of these complex negotiations?
I know Nigel. I think he's a very eloquent, persuasive guy, and good luck to him.
Right, what do you think, Nia Griffith? Will Nigel Farage be adding and helping the negotiations from the British point of view?
Well, I doubt very much, but Michel Barnier is an experienced diplomat and he knows who the government is, and he's obviously keeping his door open to allow other people to go and speak to him. He will understand fully what the position is at the moment, and he can see quite clearly that we're not actually making very good progress at the moment. We have a rather last-minute deal botched together in December.
But it was a deal.
It was a deal. I mean,
Which
you
didn't
would have
come.
jumped all over it if we hadn't got one.
Well, it wasn't clear on the island situation. It wasn't clear on EU nationals, and it wasn't clear on the amount of money, other than it's going to be a large amount of money. So
well, if
there's
it
a
hadn't been
huge
clear,
amount of
then
work.
arguably the EU would have said they wouldn't have moved on. But, I mean, there are things that are unresolved. That is totally true. I mean, Nigel Farage, you had questions that were tweeted to you or emailed to you to give to Michel Barnier.
Yeah.
They weren't all from Leave supporters, were they?
No, they were, I mean, a broad cross-section of people asking questions. As I say, the first one that I asked was one of the questions sent in. Did he understand the reasons for leaving?
Sure.
But the most interesting part was phase two. Look, I mean, I think in phase one, we've given too much money, too much jurisdiction to the ECJ. But hey, let's now talk about phase two. Let's look ahead to 2018. And what is really interesting is that Barnier, oh yes, of course, we're very happy to have a trade deal on goods, on the basis of Japan or on the basis of Canada. Well, of course, they sell us 80 billion euros worth of chocolate, cars and wine every year, more than we sell them. But when I mentioned services and financial services as being part of this package, I saw his whole body language change. I mean, he literally stiffened up and said, no, that simply can't be. Now, if we are going to enter a period of negotiation where, given the amount we've conceded in phase one, if he is not prepared to make some concessions on that, then I think the big change in the Brexit debate that will come in 2018 is you will start to see very big voices in business say, let's not waste years and years on this. Let's actually just move to WTO rules and do so quickly.
Right. Was no deal part of your discussion with Michel Barnier?
Yes, absolutely.
Right. OK, and what did he say? How much did that dominate your conversation?
Well, he said it would have bad consequences for both of us. And I said in the short term, that's absolutely right. But actually, it would hurt Europe far more than it would hurt us. Not only do they sell us more goods than we sell them, but actually the truth of it is, our financial services sector, we are the investment bankers for the whole of the rest of Europe.
Right.
Now, I would rather, as somebody who spent 20 years in business before getting involved in politics, I would rather for the short term we reached a sensible compromise deal. The British government has given a hell of a lot already. It's now time for Barnier to give something. He wasn't in that mood this morning.
All right. Finally, on UKIP, a UKIP councillor has called on the leader, Henry Bolton, to resign because of things going on in his private life. What say you?
Yeah. I say that a man who passed out as top cadet in Sandhurst, who won a bravery award in the police, who did extraordinary things in Afghanistan, who got an OBE for his services to international security, none of that would ever have been talked about or written about. He has a fling with a 25-year-old, and it's front page of some of the Sunday newspapers, and while short-term it may be uncomfortable for him, the truth is people now know his name.
Thank you for that, Nigel Farage, after his meeting with Michel Barnier. And
we will make America great again.